held June 2nd, 2020. The time is 5:30 p.m. This meeting will be held by teleconference. The teleconference audio can be accessed at the following toll-free number, 1-877-568-4106, or using the access code 931-670-565, and through an audio feed located at YouTube. Any member of the public wishing to comment on an agenda item can send the comments to the following email address, board-questions@sisd.net. All backup and materials for the meeting can be accessed at the following link, which is on the www.sisd.net. On March 16th, Governor Greg Abbott granted a request by Attorney General Ken Paxton to temporarily suspend a limited number of open meetings laws to the extent necessary to allow telephonic or video conference meetings in response to the coronavirus. In accordance with those suspended rules, we certify the following. Notice of this meeting has been posted online for at least 72 hours. Number one, although members of the board are not gathered in a central physical location, we do have a quorum in attendance at this meeting by telephone call and internet access. Number two, we are meeting by use of both telephone conference call, online access, and through use of an email link for questions. Number three, if a member of the public submitted written comments in advance, the board president or a member of the administration will read the comments into record before or during the board's consideration of that item. If you would like to provide comment at a future meeting conducted by video conference or telephone call, please follow instructions on the meeting notice. Number four, all other meeting procedures will be adhered to board adopted procedures to the extent practicable. Number five, an audio recording of this meeting is being made and will be available to the public at a later. Number six, we apologize in advance for any unforeseeable difficulties and ask for your patience as we navigate unprecedented conditions. And number seven, if you have any questions about these suspended laws, please call the Office of the Attorney General at 888-672-6787. And now I'll do a roll call to ensure that we have a quorum. Mr. Morales and Mr. Gondeta both told me they would be a little late. Have either of them arrived?
No, ma'am, not yet.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Mr. Guetta?
Present.
Mr. Garcia?
Present.
Mr. Mena?
Present.
Ms. Rodriguez? Okay, Ms. Rodriguez is not on as of yet. But with the board members we do have present, we do have a quorum. So I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. And we will, if you'll all please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, which is going to be led tonight by Ms. Zapata.
Good evening, everyone. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Zapata.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 3 is our workshop, a presentation of fiscal year 2020-2021 revenue estimates and preliminary budget. I believe we have a letter concerning this agenda item, Ms. Macias.
Yes, ma'am. President Nájera, Dr. Espinosa, members of the board. Letter comes from Tommy Hill, and the question reads, I want to bring to the board's attention that TASB is still not going to give employees their years of service experience. In 2014, TASB adjusted the district's pay levels, but put people with up to 5 years of experience at the same level with employees with 0 years of experience. We need to give employees their time of experience so we are not showing that you will be better compensated to quit and get rehired to get your experience. TASB is just up to not giving employees their experience, but we will give new employees their experience as they come into the district. I know HR has made some changes to give experience in some job levels, but we need to be fair to all district employees. HR does not have a step pay scale set up to give mechanics their time of service compensation. This needs to be fixed to be fair to our current employees. I also want to express the importance of the bonus getting broken up into 2 installments. Our hourly employees will go 7 weeks with no money coming in and will need all the help they can get to compensate them until they get back to work. Thank you, Tommy Hill.
Thank you, Ms. Macias. And we will continue with the presentation. Mr. Reza.
Good evening, President Nájera, Dr. Espinosa, members of the board. I am Tony Reza, Chief Financial Officer. Tonight, the administration is presenting the last of a series of workshops that we have conducted for the adoption of the 2020-2021 fiscal year budget. We have provided the board with a detailed budget booklet of the summary information that we're going to discuss tonight. And please feel free to ask any questions that you have about the budget during this presentation. If you'll turn to the next slide, please. Tonight, we will discuss the 3 budgets that will be formally adopted by the board on Tuesday, June the 16th, namely the general fund budget, the child nutrition program, and the debt service fund. Being that our fiscal year starts on July 1st and ends on June the 30th, it is incumbent upon the board to adopt this budget by the end of this month. We'll also review the proposed tax rate and the public notice that will be published this Thursday of this week. And finally, we will review the property tax rate adoption timeline. So if you go to slide number 3, this is the current budget drivers for 2021. Again, a commensurate general pay increase of 2% for teachers, nurses, librarians, counselors, and all other job classes. A lump payment spread into 2 parts of $1,000 for those eligible employees that were approved by the board. Additional instructional positions due to projected growth and the expansion of the dual language program. Additional instructional positions for the special education program. Funding to implement full-day pre-kindergarten at most of our elementary schools. An increase in funding for the TASB stipend and pay recommendations that were approved. Funding to provide laptops for the incoming freshman class. Funding to purchase 10 new school buses. And finally, funding for staff development of the state mandated reading academies. So if you'll turn to slide number 4, this slide reflects the manner in which the board will adopt the budget by fund and by function. The funds are represented by the column amounts, and the functions are represented by the row amounts. As previously mentioned, these major funds are the general fund, which amount to $450 million, the child nutrition program, which is $32.7 million, the debt service fund, which is $60.9 million. So the combined total budget that the board will adopt is $544,272,919. This is a $6.8 million decrease from the current revised budget. And the budget booklet that we provided to you breaks down these amounts in more detail. If you go to slide number 5, this represents the revenues for those associated 3 funds that are going to be adopted. As you can see, the general fund has $443 million in revenues, and we will be using $6.9 million of fund balance to balance the budget. As you can also see in the general fund, that we get a majority of our funding from the state. That's approximately 74%. So we need to keep in mind that when state funding cuts occur, they have a greater proportionate impact on school districts like Socorro ISD that are property poor. The child nutrition program has projected revenues of $32 million, and we will use $665,000 of fund balance to balance the budget. And the debt service fund will have $60 million in revenue, and we are projecting a balanced budget for that fund. So total revenues for the budget is $536,621,663. On slide 6, things that we want to consider as we move forward with the adoption of the budget, especially the years coming up First, how is the Texas Education Agency going to address funding tied to student attendance for those students who are instructed via distance learning? At this current time, we have no guidance, but we're looking forward to what methodology TA will use in determining this funding and how it will impact the district. Secondly, and more importantly, how significant will be the negative fiscal impact of COVID-19 pandemic on the upcoming state biennial budget? This remains to be seen. Then finally, we have financial commitments that we'll need to address in the near future, namely the staffing of personnel for the new student activities complex to be opened in fiscal year 2022, and the new combo school, which will be opened in fiscal year 2023. So slide number 7 represents the proposed tax decrease based on the highest tax rate that the board can adopt currently by law. So this shows a slight decrease, about a little under half a penny in the overall tax rate. The actual tax rate that the board will approve will be based on our certified property values that are set by the Central Appraisal District. Now, we're taking a proactive, conservative approach and publishing the highest tax rate with the expectation the tax rate, once it's certified, will probably be lower. We just don't know how much lower it will be. So this notice gives the taxpayer the highest possible tax rate without us risking publishing a tax rate that might end up being higher than what we will have to adopt. So on slide number 8, this is the tax impact on the average resident of the Socorro Independent School District at the highest possible tax rate. As you can see, there's an increase in the average taxable value of the average homeowner. This increase in value is showing a tax impact on the average homeowner of $18.72. Note again that these figures are using preliminary values. So when we receive the certified values, very likely we'll have a lower tax impact on our constituents. Finally, also listed is the district's voter approved rate, which is the highest rate that the Board of Trustees can adopt without holding a tax ratification election. And then if you turn to page, slide number 9, this Thursday, as I mentioned before, we'll publish the notice in the El Paso Times and the West Texas Courier, detailing the date and the time that we will conduct the public hearing on the budget and the proposed tax rate. The budget hearing will be conducted first, and later we will have later in the budget meeting, we will have the board adopt the proposed budget for the 2021 fiscal year. It is our intent to conduct a public hearing in August on the proposed property tax rate and request to abort the tax rate at that time. As a reminder, this year, the Texas Education Agency will determine the tax rate to be adopted by the district. It will be based on our certified values determined in late July. So to meet the timeline required by the Truth in Taxation Act, we need to publish the public hearing with the information submitted by TA by no later than Tuesday, August the 4th. If we don't receive that information by that timeline, then we might have to push the adoption of the tax rate into September. The law requires us to approve the tax rate 60 days after the receipt of our certified property value. So we have until August to approve the tax rate. And just for your information, really, we don't have to republish the notice in August if we intend to adopt a tax rate that's lower than what we're going to publish on Tuesday. However, it's been our tradition here at Socorro ISD to always, as a matter of transparency and to provide the information to our taxpayers, to publish the tax rate that will be adopted by the board. And therefore, we do that as a matter of procedure. So this is my presentation. Are there any questions with respect to the presentation that I've given you or the information on the budget booklet that was provided to the board?
Yes, President Nahid, Mr. Mayor, I have a couple of questions for Mr. Reza.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mena.
Tony, so we're decreasing the tax rate by a little bit under half a penny?
At this point in time, Mr. Mena, based on the property growth that we're projecting, at this point, we're projecting a 4.01 growth in our property values. Based on that percentage growth, the tax rate will go down half a penny. However, once our certified values come in, we will know exactly how much growth in our values will be for this year. Chances are it's going to be higher. If it's going to be higher, then the tax rate's going to go lower. It could go another penny. It could go 2 cents. We don't know yet. But what we're doing is taking a conservative approach and showing the taxpayers this is the highest rate that we can adopt. Chances are it's going to be lower. And so because of the values going up, that's why you're showing a little bit of an increase, about $18.72. My
Right,
guess
that was
is
my
gonna-
next question.
So this is what we're publishing. This does not mean that that's what's going to happen. We're just
Right.
publishing the worst case scenario. I think confidence is very high that the tax rate is going to go lower. And when we do that, it'll lower that dollar amount of $18.
Okay, Tony, thank you. Good job.
Thank you, sir.
Are there any other questions?
President Nakara, this is Paul Garcia.
Yes, sir, Mr. Garcia.
Mr. Reza, I have a question regarding the permanent substitutes. Are they eligible for the stipend and the pay increase?
No, sir. Permanent substitutes get paid a daily rate that's set by our policy, our stipend policy. If Mr. Campoya, maybe can address that. There.
So, President Nahara and Dr. Espinosa, members of the board, Rudy Campoya, Chief Human Resources Officer. Just to answer your question, Mr. Garcia, permanent subs are still considered substitutes. So they are covered by a different regulation. They are not part of any pay family, so they're not eligible for board-approved pay raises. So basically, they don't qualify for the $1,000 one-time lump sum payment or the 2% increase of board approved.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Reza, and we will move on to item number 4, new business. A, consider approval of personal protective equipment, RFP number E2060. Mr. Reza?
Yes, President Naka, Dr. Espinosa, members of the board. This is RFP 2060. This is for personal protective equipment and accessories. This is a solicitation to procure gloves, gowns, facial shields, safety glasses, masks, infrared non-touch thermometers, and electrostatic sanitizing sprayers as needed by the district-wide. We submitted requested proposals from 550 vendors. We got 48 responses, 17 no bids. We are recommending 22 vendors. We're projecting a limit of about $900,000 per year. This is a multi-year award, 1 year with 2 one-year possible extensions. Are there any questions?
Mrs. Nakira, Ms. Gary Gandara,
Yes, Mr. Gandara.
motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
I have a motion by Mr. Gandara and a second by Ms. Rodriguez. Is there any further discussion?
President, now I have a discussion.
Yes, sir, Mr. Guetta, go ahead.
Mr. Ressa, the only question I have is, as I look at the vendors that are participating, which is probably about at least over 20 vendors, and as I look at their scores, the only concern I have is that, and I always look at all the vendor scores, and I think that this is the first time that I've been a board member. There's probably only 3 of the vendors that scored over a 70. I think like 3 of them scored a 71 and a 73. The rest of them scored very low out of 100. And I understand, possibly because of what they're bidding, and the material. But that was a concern of mine, and I know the scores are very low. Is that a concern?
So Mr. Guerra, I'm going to ask if Mr. Garcia can come in and answer that question that you have.
President Nájera, Dr. Espinosa, members of the board. My name is Samuel Garcia, Director of Purchasing. Mr. Guerra, so part of the challenge with this solicitation is that we selected multiple vendors within each of the line items because part of the challenge has to do with delivery of the items.
Yes, sir. Correct.
And therefore, maybe some of the scoring is because we did have some vendors that wanted to participate, but they did not commit to our delivery schedule because of the volumes that we are asking for. But as you can see, those vendors that did get awarded, all of those vendors that got awarded were above a 60 points. So it was a combination of price, combination of delivery. So we did have other vendors that were interested, but they did not want to commit to pricing because pricing is also, it's changing daily in some of these items. And so that's really why the scores reflect that. But as far as the vendors that they had, whoever was able to submit samples, that was also another challenge because all of these products are very limited throughout the country at this moment.
Yeah, and that's what I figured that must have been the issue for for the personal protective equipment. I just always looked at the scoring, and this is the first time in my 10 years I noticed that the scoring was ever so low. And I saw only like 3 companies over a 70, and I just thought that might be an issue. But I just figured, it's just at the moment right now, it was hard to go after the protective equipment. That was my question. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
sir.
Are there any other questions?
President Nájera, I've got another question.
Yes, Ms. Rodriguez.
In looking at the companies in the list of vendors, again, with the situation being what it is, are these companies going to be able to supply the PPE that we will be requesting and we will be ordering?
Mrs. Rodriguez, it's certainly the goal for us to see if we receive them. We do think they are. That's why you have a large number of vendors that we're approving, because of the fact that we will be using all of them, in my estimation. Sam, do you want to add anything to that?
Certainly. So our job, once the board approves this, our job tomorrow is to reach out and start developing those delivery schedules to make sure that we get deliveries as indicated, beginning of July, September, December, and so forth. So it's as Mr. Reza indicated, our goal is to use as many as possible to be able to accommodate all of our district needs. And so we'll be working with each and every one of these vendors to make sure that we get that accomplished.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Gondeta and a second by Ms. Rodriguez. And I'll now do a roll call for the vote. Mr. Morales?
That would be an aye.
Thank you. Mr. Guerra?
Aye.
Mr. Gondeta?
Aye.
Mr. Garcia?
Aye.
Mr. Mena?
Aye.
And Ms. Rodriguez?
Aye.
And the motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Reza and Mr. Garcia.
Thank you.
We will
Thank
move
you.
on to item 4B, consider approval of memorandum of understanding with Urgent Care for Kids LLC. Ms. Macias.
Yes, President Nájera, Dr. Espinosa, members of the board, at this time we would request approval for this MOU. This partnership was established to assist local and SISD communities with COVID-19 testing as requested by the city of El Paso. Urgent Care for Kids will provide curbside COVID-19 testing at no cost to the district. In kind, the district will provide traffic control assistance via police services and will provide minimal use of facilities as the demand warrants for the following buildings: the Student Activities Complex, Sanchez Middle School, Pebble Hills High School, and Slider Middle School. District nurses will contract with this vendor independently to render services at our testing sites. On page 18 of our MOU, it's the third to the last paragraph on the bottom. We do have a slight modification that we are requesting. The modification reads, SISD or vendor may terminate this MOU immediately with written notice at their sole discretion. Again, recommendation to approve with a slight modification, and it's just adding the words or vendor and finishing up the sentence to read, SISD or vendor may terminate this MOU immediately with written notice at their sole discretion. We just did not have any termination law or language within this agreement, so that was recommended. And I would like to thank our amazing nurses. They're going to ensure that this happens. Ms. Rebecca Madrid, Dr. Ismael Castro, Chief Castorena, and Kevin Pierce. He's the president for Urgent Care for Kids. They've been working diligently to develop and solidify this protocol. And we're going to offer COVID-19 drive-through testing at our SAC and possibly other facilities. And we're going to pay it forward to our SISD employees and our community. So board, I would like your approval at this time.
Paul Guerra, motion to approve.
Second,
David Morales, second.
Discussion, Paul Garcia.
I have a motion by Mr. Guerra and a second by Mr. Morales. Is there any further discussion? Go ahead, Mr. Garcia.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Macias, I know it states the effective June 3rd. How soon are we going to be able to provide this testing?
Yes, you know what? We have an amazing team. They were actually doing a walkthrough today at the SAC. And the plan is that for tomorrow and Thursday, we're going to roll out the information and we're going to help our employees. We want to make sure all of our employees, anybody that wants to be tested, will have the opportunity to do that. So Ms. Madrid and a team will be at the Ed Center providing some assistance for registration. And we're looking at opening up the site on Friday at the SAC from 8 to 11 for our district employees. And then on Monday, we'll open it up to our community. So our proposed open date is this Friday from 8 to 11 for our SISD employees.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? And Ms. Macias, are those dates and time for the employees and community, are those set in stone? Or are they change?
Yes, that's something that we're working on. Again, we're gonna PR, they're amazing. We're gonna, as soon as you all approve, I'm already jumping the gun, but as soon as you all approve, I know that our PR team is gonna get that information out. And that way we'll have 2 days. We're thinking 2 days will be good enough to where we could help any employees that want to register. And that way we could open it up on Friday. And truly it's gonna be based on the demand. We want to get all the kinks out and have everything set from Friday for a whole week at the SAC. And then once all of our nurses get their hands in place, get trained, we do want to open up our second site that following week at Sanchez Middle School. And we'll go from there. Every week we'll be assessing the demand and need. And we do have 4 sites, if you all approve, in the plan that we could transition to. But we want to start slow, steady, and truly provide a great service to our community.
Thank you, Ms. Macias. I have a motion by Mr. Guerra and a second by Mr. Morales. Now do a roll call for the vote. Mr.
Aye.
Mr. Guerra,
Aye.
Mr. Gondeta,
Aye.
Mr. Garcia,
Aye.
Mr. Mena,
Aye.
Ms. Rodriguez,
aye.
and the motion carries. If there is no further business before this board, we are adjourned. And the time is 5:59. Thank you all for joining us, and please be safe.